Have you ever made an AI film or video and when it's finished, it still feels like something is missing? The shots are clean, the prompts are solid, the characters are consistent, but the film still feels flat. Well, I was finishing my last project and I had this same dilemma. I was happy with the way that everything had come together, but there were a couple of elements still missing. It wasn't the generations, it wasn't the prompts, it wasn't even the story. It was two small things that a lot of us like to skip. And in this video, I want to show you two AI tools that help finish my AI film and why these two steps matter more than most people realize. If you're new here, I'm Khalil from AI for Real Life. Over the past year, I've been deep in the AI filmmaking space, testing tools, breaking workflows, rebuilding them, and figuring out what actually works in real-world projects, not just polished demos. I worked across everything from ad campaigns and client projects to music videos and longer-form cinematic projects of my own. A lot of this work lives behind the scenes, but I've been sharing the process almost every day over the past year on TikTok, testing new AI video tools, comparing workflows, and seeing what things actually hold up under pressure. And I wanted to come back to YouTube because this is where I can slow things down. This is where I can go deeper and really walk you through how I'm thinking about these tools, how I'm making decisions, and what's actually happening in my head as I build these scenes, lock looks, and a lot of this is I share my failures along the way. See, this channel isn't about hype or one-click magic. It's not about pretending that AI does all the work for you. It's about learning how to direct AI instead of just prompting it, and building workflows that you can actually repeat and improve over time. So whether you're brand new to AI filmmaking or already experimenting and trying to level things up, my goal here is to give you frameworks, context, and practical insights that you can actually use. All right, let's dive in. All right, so this project is called Outgrow Your World, something like that. And I've gone through a lot of the steps of creating this project in other videos, so feel free to check them out whenever you want. And I'll leave a link to the finished video in the description also. But before I made these last changes that I'm gonna talk about in this video here, visually, in my opinion, it was in a good place. The shots worked, the pacing was solid, but when I watched it back, it still felt like something was missing. And I think this is where a lot of AI films kind of go to die sometimes. See, we take a lot of time generating great visuals and putting everything together, and then we just stop and publish. And really, real films are not just seen, they're also felt, right? So with this whole thing, when I stepped back, I realized that my film was missing two things that every cinematic piece really relies on. And that was sound design and texture. It's probably missing a lot of other things, but these are the two things that I wanted to focus on. So it was not the music, it was not the visual storytelling, it was sound and texture in my opinion, and not just my opinion because I ran this thing through Gemini and it gave me some feedback on this. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on, and I talked about that in another video also. So even though I wanted to get this thing done and just get it out and move on because this is a concept piece, sound design was a necessary step to bring this whole thing together. Like the footsteps, the street noise, the atmosphere, all those little things that you don't always notice, but subconsciously you miss them when they're not there. And I'm not a sound designer, I'm not claiming to be. My goal is to finish projects and not become an expert in everything. I just want to understand the tools and process so that I can decide later on if this is something that I want to take on or maybe sub out to somebody else. So I needed something fast and flexible for this project, and I ended up going with ElevenLabs for sound effects. I had debated using some of the newer AI automated sound effect generators where you drop in a clip and it builds everything for you. But for this one, getting in there and working directly with ElevenLabs felt like a better choice for me just at this moment. So let's jump into ElevenLabs and I'll show you what I did. So inside of ElevenLabs, there's a sound effects section with two main approaches. The first one is the Explore option, and this is where you can simply just search for common sounds like people walking down the street or city ambiance or room tone or whatever. And then you can just download those pre-made sounds or save them as a favorite and drop them straight into your editor. And there's different filtering options that you can use here, like you can filter by looping sounds, duration, trending, or most downloaded or whatever. So for basic ambiance, this alone goes a really long way. But the real value is that with ElevenLabs, you can generate your own sounds. And you can do this on other platforms also. This is just the one that I use a lot. I also use Minimax Audio a lot, and I think they have that option here too. So if you want to generate a sound effect, you just type in something like the sound of two people walking down a street with light city ambiance. So let's try that for example. And there are some other options down here that you can decide whether to loop the sound so that it blends seamlessly in a continuous loop. You can also choose how long you want the clip to be, how closely you want it to stick to the prompt, different things like that. And once you generate it, ElevenLabs gives you multiple variations to choose from. So you just listen and you pick whichever one you like the best, or whichever ones you like the best. You download it, save it to favorites, and then move on. So after I download the sounds, what I usually do is drop them into a dedicated audio folder inside of my project. It just helps keep them organized for later on. And with this, I can reuse them for other projects or different parts of this same project if I decide to use it, instead of going back through my downloads and trying to find them. So from there, I just drag them straight into the editor timeline. And for this project, I'm using CapCut. Sometimes I use Final Cut Pro, just depending on the complexity of it, or sometimes I start in CapCut and just end up staying there because I've already built out too much. So for certain sounds like footsteps or a basketball bouncing, I had to manually line them up with the visuals. But honestly, it wasn't that difficult as long as you have a basic understanding of editing timelines. And you don't need to be a sound designer to do all this. You just need to be able to zoom in, line things up, and trust your ears a little bit. And don't get me wrong, a professional sound designer will most likely do it much better than you, but this is when you're just trying to get a grip on things and do things on your own. That's kind of the focus here, right? But like I spoke a little bit about in one of my previous videos, if you don't have any editing experience at all, then there are some tools where you can just drop in the clip and it automatically generates sound design for you. Platforms like Audio, and that might be a better option for you if you have no experience in editing. But for me, getting in there and just placing the sounds manually ended up being much faster and gave me more control. Now, this is the part that I think is important to talk about also, because no tool is perfect and I don't want it to sound like everything just worked magically. Some sounds didn't work perfectly. When I went into the ElevenLabs, I was trying to get the sounds of dunking the basketball. And for those, it would just not give me anything really good, or I couldn't find anything good at least. So for this, I just went into YouTube and searched for dunking sound effects and background sounds, and then did a screen recording and used those. It's not like super elegant, but it's effective. So that was the basic process that I used in ElevenLabs just to fill out the sound for this project. So after the sound design, the film, it felt a lot better. You just could feel it, right? But something still felt off. So what I do normally with these things is I ask Gemini for help, and I talked about this in my previous video. I just drop the video into Gemini, ask it to analyze it, and it lets me know what's going on with it and what it thinks are certain elements that I could step my game up on. So with this one, Gemini had pointed out that the beginning of the film looks different than the end of the film. So for example, at the beginning of the film, it said it felt like it had a film grain texture that wasn't really present in the later basketball scenes. It looked more digital. So one of the suggestions was to add a consistent 16mm film grain across those later scenes to give the film more continuity and reduce that overly digital feel, which is a great thing to point out. I might have missed it on my own. But when that came up, I also remember that ChatGPT can actually create LUT files, which are essentially the overlays that you can use in your editor to add things like film grain or just a certain look that you want to give your project, or certain scenes or whatever. And when I was doing this, I actually couldn't remember the file type name that you would use for these LUTs. So instead of just going down a rabbit hole and guessing, I just asked ChatGPT what the file types that editors use for color and overlays was. And it explained that it uses cube files and a few other different files that they use also. And then I just asked it to generate a 16mm film grain LUT. And after it asked me a few quick questions about how intense I want the grain to be and what the overall feel I was going for, whether I wanted more documentary or cinematic, I ended up choosing a heavier grain because I was like, maybe I could just dial it back. I can go heavier, dial it back, and have that option rather than start light and not have an option to go forward with it. So ChatGPT just went ahead and created the cube file for me that I could use. So after you've created and downloaded the LUT file from ChatGPT, you can use that file in pretty much whatever editor you're working with. And like I said, for this project, I was using CapCut. Sometimes I use Final Cut Pro, like I said, but this one I just stayed in CapCut. Once I'm in CapCut, all I do is add an adjustment layer over the clips that I want affected, and I import the cube LUT file. And then I just start dialing the intensity until it feels right and looks right. But obviously you don't want to push it too far, because when you crank it up too much, the color shifts and different things like that. And also, if this overlay did not work the way that you wanted it to, you can go back to ChatGPT, say, this did not work for this reason, generate me another one, and it'll generate. Then you can also give it examples of a look that you want and ask it to generate that file based on that. So for this project, I ended up doing 16mm film grain, but two different levels of it. One over the beginning that already had a grain over it, and I did that a lot lighter, and then a slightly heavier variation over the areas that did not have a film grain already in the style. You can go ahead and look at it here. It's not something that just jumps out at you, but it does help a lot. in my opinion. I don't know, you let me know in the comments if it worked at all. So the film grain does two things when you use it intentionally. First, it gives your AI films a more cinematic look. And this is all in my opinion, especially when everything is starting to feel a little too clean or digital. And second, if it's done correctly, it actually helps the AI generations feel more real by subtly breaking up that overly perfect smoothness that can make things feel artificial. So after the sound design and grain, nothing about the story had really changed, but the film finally felt good enough for me to publish. And even though it's added a few extra steps and a few more hours to the project, I'm really glad I took the time to do it. In my opinion, these extra steps made a noticeable difference in how the film feels overall. So this one wasn't a super deep dive like I did in my last one. It's like a 30-minute deep dive into the whole process, but I really wanted to show you the process of just doing those final touches and using AI to do that in order to get your project done and get it out. And right now I've got a few different projects that I'm working on, and some of them are client projects that I won't be able to show you, but I can show you a similar project of my own that I'll be working in tandem just to show you these elements that I'm using. So what I'm planning on doing here next is taking everything back to the very beginning and walk you through those early steps of setting up your project. And I'm also working on a personal trailer project on the side that I'm trying to bring to life, but it follows the same foundation, so we can probably use both as the case studies in this whole situation coming up. So even though these projects themselves are different, the setup process is basically the same. So in the next few videos, I'm planning to take what I've learned over the past few months, and I've taken a lot of time to really organize and show you how I'm setting these projects up for success from day one, because that is really important. So that was my experience and journey through the process of making this concept short film. And if you found any value in this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, but also leave a comment. A lot of my future videos and guides are shaped directly by your comments. If something didn't make sense or you want to see a deeper breakdown, that's where the whole thing starts. For a lot of these videos, I also put together extra material. Things like guides, cheat sheets, prompts, workflows, and deeper breakdowns that don't always fit inside of a single video. You can find all of that along with the newsletter and links to my other channels in the link in the description. I've also posted the full Outgrow Your World video on my channel, so check it out. Thanks for watching, and I really appreciate you being here, and I'll see you guys in the next one.